Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Uh, my name is Marie Hedden. I'm convener of IASL, and I'm happy to welcome you all to another session of our 10 minutes with interviews, which were started by Carla Sassi and her team during COVID. The goal of those interviews is to get to know our members a little better and keep up with the research and events in our community. You can find Carla's interviews on our website, which are still available to watch and very interesting. Today, I have the great pleasure of talking to Dr. Attila Dósa, who's an associate professor at the University of Miskolc in Northern Hungary. He was a Achievement Scholar at the University of Oxford and received his PhD on Douglas Dunn's poetry from the University of St. Andrews in 2001 after an MA in English and Hungarian at the University of Debrecen in Hungary. Dr. Dosa's research is on the history of Scottish literature, and his contributions to the field include the volumes Beyond Identity, New Horizons in Scottish Poetry, which was published in 2009, and in Hungarian, A History of Modern Scottish Literature, which came out recently in 2023, as well as chapters in a book edited by Carla Sassi, The International Companion to Scottish Poetry, which came out in 2015, and contributions as well, a contribution in a book entitled Growing Up a Woman by Milena Kostic and Sona Snurkova, who edited those books. And he also published a chapter in the book entitled The Literary Art of Alice Smith, which came out in 2019, and in Contemporary Literary Criticism, a book which came out in 2021, edited by Jennifer Stock. Attila is a reviewer for Forum for Modern Language Studies, and his monograph on Douglas Dunn's poetry, which he's still polishing, is forthcoming in Glasgow. Welcome, Attila, to the 10 Minutes Worth interview. And
Hello. It's
hello,
nice to be here. Thank you.
and good to have you. And my first question will be on your research, which is on the history of Scottish literature. You've published extensively in that field about Alice Smith, John Burnside, contemporary Scottish poets or poetry. You've published on Murrispark, Douglas Dunn, but also on Hungarian poetry. You've conducted interviews with many Scottish poets such as Robert Crawford, Douglas Dunn, but also Edwin Morgan. So my first question is, what brought you to Scottish literature, and how do you work about it in a historical perspective while maintaining a keen interest in poets and poetry? How does that connection work? And maybe more generally, can you tell us about your extent of your connection with Scottish literature?
Okay, thanks. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm very happy to hear. Thank you. I've always been interested in Scottish poetry, and I first met Scottish literature in the 1990s when I came across a poem by Douglas Dunn by chance, and I just loved the poem. So I just fell in love with his poetry, which led me to read his elegies, which became the focus of my MA thesis. And I just decided that I wanted to know more about Scotland and Scottish literature. So I decided to pursue my PhD in Scotland, and I was happy that I was accepted at St. Andrews University. And Robert Crawford was my PhD supervisor, and these were really formative years. And this was also a time when St. Andrews was kind of hub of poetic life. Douglas Dunn was head of department there, and also other influential poets who were teaching there included Don Patterson, John Burnside, and Kathleen Jamie. And of course, I met Douglas Dunn and conducted this interview with him. And actually, it was Robert Crawford's suggestions. Why don't I talk to other poets? So that's what I did. And after returning to Hungary, I stayed connected to Scottish literature, and I was attending the Edinburgh Book Festival annually, where I met other poets such as Dubion Herbert and Kate Clenchy, and it was a great pleasure to meet them in person. And I also had opportunities to travel to Glasgow, where I met Edwin Morgan and Frank Kupner. A really memorable moment was a coffee house conversation with Frank Kupner in Glasgow, where he later gave me a personal tour of the city. And I also had the opportunity to meet Edwin Morgan in his apartment and talk to him in person. So these were basically my motivations to integrate my personal connections into this historical research. And of course, my interest has widened since then, of course, and expanded into fiction, especially such as Muriel Spark. And I have had the opportunity to deliver conference presentations on her work, and also publish articles and book chapters. And also collaborations with colleagues from the Czech Republic introduced me to Alice Smith and her prose, and I'm really a great admirer of her literary art. And this collaboration led to long-term projects, including edited books. And my most recent essay on Alice Smith came out in the Journal of Lesbian Studies, which is edited at Mississippi University in the United States, and this is very new. I'm also interested in editing a book on Muriel Spark's global reception. I've already recruited some contributors to this volume. So if anyone in ILS is interested in contributing to this volume, please contact me.
That's great. Thanks for launching this appeal. I hope it will be heard. The second question that I would like to ask you, Attila, is about your more recent projects, in particularly the monographs that you're working on. Can you tell us about your history of modern Scottish literature, which came out with a Hungarian publisher, written in Hungarian? And as we were chatting before we started recording this interview, we were thinking that maybe it would be a good idea for you to branch out on how many scholars are interested in Scottish literature in Hungary, the reading community, the fact that there can be a book on Scottish literature being published in Hungarian in itself is really significant and interesting. So I'd like you maybe to talk about this a little bit. And then will you please tell us, give us a sort of preview into your book on Douglas Dunn, which will be published by Scottish Literature International in 2025. So first the history of modern Scottish literature, and then the book on Douglas Dunn, the one that's forthcoming.
Okay, thanks. Well, my history of modern Scottish literature came out in 2023, and I'm very happy because this is the first comprehensive literary history on Scottish literature published in my language ever. It basically started as a project for a multi-volume history of English literature. I was invited to contribute chapters to this history of English literature, and it started to grow and expand basically. So I decided to use the opportunity and publish it as a standalone book basically. And what I think is innovative about this book is that apart from providing an overview of Scottish literature from the Home Rule years to the post-Brexit era, is that it dedicates specific attention to themes of community and identity, and how the idea of community changes across the ages, and how all that is reflected in literature. Probably another innovative approach is that I try to expand the diversity of genres that I was investigating in the book. So apart from the classic literary fiction and poems and dramas that we usually investigate in seminar rooms, I try to include other genres such as romance and even crime writing or travel writing. And I was also very much interested in looking at the readers' responses, not just critics, but I believe that books are for everybody. So I use the opportunity to investigate the responses and the reception of these books by real readers, using, of course, various forums that are available, of course, on the internet. This is in Hungarian, but I'm planning to write a version of it in the English language so that I can bring it to our community. And speaking of the community of readers, very few colleagues are interested in Scottish literature in my country, but I'm happy to report that that there are some enthusiastic students, especially at my university, who have been keen to actually purchase the book and read the books. And I also read some positive feedback about my book on various, community platforms of readers. My other book that you mentioned is a monograph for Douglas Dunn, which is, I think, very timely, given his achievement and his contribution to the history of modern Scottish poetry. It was planned for publication in 2024, but as you said, I'm still kind of polishing it. It's a labor of love as well as critical work. So I like to make sure that it's really up to my standards before I release it. But it's set for submission in 2025 in Glasgow. And just like my other book, it also focuses on identity and community and language, especially in his poetry. And I'm trying to approach his poetry from a specifically Eastern European angle, focusing on how a poet as a representative personality could channel his ideas towards the community, basically, and represent it in poetry.
Excellent. We've maybe got time for one quick question. One third question. How I think that our viewers will be interested in how much Scottish literature do you teach at the University of Miskolc? You mentioned some very enthusiastic students. So I was wondering, can you tell us just in a few words if you, for example, if you have the freedom of setting up a syllabus or if you have to work on, English classics, and how does it work? How do your students react to Scottish literature in Hungary?
At the moment, Scottish literature is primarily offered as elective courses in our BA program, and it also means that only enthusiastic students who have a specific interest apply to these courses. So I'm very happy to report that I've been able to develop a range of courses, including courses on 20th century poetry, covering pre-war but also contemporary poetry. And I found that, for instance, Tom Leonard's poems, they are always a favorite with students because I think they can relate to the language, to the experimentation, but also to the political issues. I have also designed author-specific seminars, for instance, dedicated to Muriel Spark or Ellie Smith. And just for the sake of experimentation, I dedicated an entire semester to Muriel Spark's The Prime of Miss Jane Brodie. So basically what we did that across several weeks, we were reading and trying to make sense of this beautiful novel, which is very short, but of course students understood that this is almost like an encyclopedia of Scottish culture and Scottish life in the middle of the 20th century. And besides that, I've also led translation workshops, kind of mentoring students in translating Scottish works, mainly of short fiction, short stories. And of course I supervise these translations, and I'm happy to say that many of these have been already published, including the Seraph and the Zambesi by Muriel Spark, which was published I think in 2006. This is, her first important short story, and I just felt the need, that it was not available in Hungarian. So I think I was thinking that I had to, correct the situation and make this available to Hungarian readers. So I think that was also kind of a success, bringing in students and actually, having them actively contribute and making the texts their own. Okay.
Really interesting. Well, we're a little over the time limit, but there's so many interesting things to say about that. So, Attila, I just need to thank you very much for being with me this morning. And for all the things that you said about Scottish literature and its position in Hungary is really, really interesting. And I'm sure that our community in IASL will be as interested as I was listening to you. Thank you, Attila, for this.
I thank you very much. Thank you and goodbye.